dossier. This last line in it telling Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, at this point, it seems the Department of Justice and the FBI need to be investigating themselves. Nunes is demanding those documents now by January 3rd next week, along with witness lists. He is clearly frustrated with agencies for stalling or slow walking his request, and the sentiment is shared on Capitol Hill. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy weighing in.
Remember, there are a number of investigations going on here, but the lack of cooperation, the questions that have been raised by some individuals working in the DOJ and also within the FBI, and the Inspector General doing that own investigation where these emails came out forward, I think we're going to have to clean some areas up, and I think you have to have transparency.
This comes as President Trump sat down with a New York Times reporter who asked about the Mueller investigation. The president telling him that he has confidence in Mueller, saying, quote, "I hope that he's going to be fair. I think that he's going to be fair." And based on that, there's been no collusion, but it follows a slew of change at the FBI. Remember what we have seen in recent weeks. Former Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Ohr demoted. FBI agent Peter Strzok removed from the investigation. The FBI's general counsel just reassigned James Baker, and Deputy Director Andrew McCabe doing all those hours of behind closed doors hearings, and he is retiring early next week. Hats off to our colleague John Roberts, who obtained this letter exclusively. Heather, it is going to make for a busy week next week. Yeah, sure is. First week of the year, and we're still at it. You know, the word of the year should be dossier. That's what I think, for sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Griff. Well, just to summarize, President Trump vowing to rebuild the FBI, and changes are already taking place. General Counsel James Baker has resigned. Deputy Director Andrew McCabe expected to retire early next year. Agent Peter Strzok, who helped run the Clinton server investigation, has been removed after anti-Trump texts were discovered with his alleged mistress, also an FBI agent. And former Associate Deputy AG Bruce Ohr has been demoted for concealing meetings with Fusion GPS, the company behind the anti-Trump dossier. A Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett says that there's something fishy about Mueller's group of guys, and they've been determined to make President Trump look bad.
He smells a cover-up. There's only one reason why you would defy and stonewall and evade a lawful congressional subpoena for 4 long months, and that is if you're trying to hide evidence of wrongdoing on the part of the FBI and the Department of Justice. It all comes down to the dossier. If it's true that it was a complete fabrication and the FBI knew it, and nevertheless they used it to launch the Trump investigation, that renders the entire investigation a charade and delegitimizes the Mueller investigation. You've got this all too cozy group of guys, Comey, Mueller, Weinstein. They've all worked together for years and years and years. And there's something unseemly about that, because they appear to be ignoring evidence of illegality on the part of Hillary Clinton, potential illegality on the part of the FBI, and they seem to be determined to find wrongdoing on the part of President Trump where none exists. Yeah. Along with all the Democratic donors on the investigation that Mueller appointed. Again, as Griff mentioned, Chairman Nunes says that the DOJ and the FBI have till the 3rd of January, that's next week, to produce all relevant records and documents related to that original subpoena, which they received back in August. Well, now to another Fox News alert. This is some horrible news breaking overnight. A tragic fire in New York City. At least 12 people are dead, including a 1-year-old, after flames swept through an apartment building in the Bronx. People rushing out of their homes into the below freezing temperatures to try and escape that inferno. One man wearing just his bathrobe and sandals.
People were on the fire escape already trying to get down on their own. That's how fast it was moving. People were screaming, and that's how we knew it was trouble, because people were screaming, fire, hell, fire, hell. We knew it was trouble.
More than 170 firefighters worked for hours to get the flames under control. Mayor Bill de Blasio now warning that more victims could be found as investigators search that building this morning. This is the city's deadliest blaze in more than a quarter of a century. Back in 1990, 87 people were killed in an arson attack at a social club less than a mile away. Our prayers with all those folks.
Fears of a terror attack causing some mass chaos on the streets of Seattle after a van jumped the curb, plowing into a store packed with shoppers. 4 people on that sidewalk, they were run down before the van eventually smashed through the window. Someone inside hit with shattered glass. Police say that the whole thing was an accident. The driver apparently lost control after suffering some sort of medical condition. But witnesses say that one man thought that it was intentional and then started pummeling the driver until police dragged him away. But it was an accident. And caught red-handed, President Trump calling out China. We talked about this yesterday after reports that the country is illegally selling oil to North Korea. Alicia Acuna is live for us in Los Angeles with what the Trump administration is expected to do next. Good morning, Alicia.
Well, good morning, Heather. Yes, President Trump not holding back when reacting to reports that China was secretly providing oil to North Korea. These satellite photos appear to show Chinese ships loading oil onto North Korean ships. But this has apparently happened more than 30 times since October. If true, it would violate UN sanctions that capped 90% of North Korea's oil imports. The president tweeting, "Caught red-handed, very disappointed that China is allowing oil to go into North Korea. There will never be a friendly solution to the North Korea problem if this continues to happen." President Trump once again bringing up aggressive trade actions against China to the New York Times. Quote, "Oil is going into North Korea. That wasn't my deal. If they don't help us with North Korea, then I do what I've always said I want to do." Former ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, said China is insulting President Trump by directly propping up the North Korean regime's efforts to build a nuclear arsenal.
They screwed him. I mean, how many ways do you have to put it to get it to understand he tried to work with them and they haven't done it? We are running out of time. They're very close to the point where they can hit targets in the United States. You can talk about massive sanctions all you want.
China has denied the reports, a defense official saying the situation absolutely does not exist. The relationship between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping now taking an icy turn after November's big welcome during his Asia tour. This could set up a very interesting 2018. Remember, the president campaigned hard on changing the trade rules with China even before North Korea's nuclear threats. Heather?
All right, we'll continue to follow that into the new year as well. Alicia Acuna live for us. Thank you. Well, the State Department, meantime, is expected to dump an avalanche of emails from Hillary Clinton's top aide today. According to Judicial Watch, the nearly 3,000 pages of Huma Abedin's work documents were found on her ex-husband's laptop. You remember him, convicted sex offender Anthony Weiner. Former FBI Director James Comey announcing that bombshell discovery last October, days before the election. Well, Clinton claims that that announcement cost her her presidency, along with a lot of other explanations that we've heard. Well, it is the end of the road for Republican Roy Moore as the Alabama board rejects his last-ditch lawsuit to delay Democrat Doug Jones's certification. The state board declaring that Jones is the winner of the Senate special election, holding 21,924 votes over Moore in the final vote count, which is more than initially estimated. Jones is the first Democrat to win that state in 25 years. Moore, though, has still yet to concede to Jones. And Johnny Football making a comeback north of the border. Johnny Manziel has been approved by the Canadian Football League to sign a contract next year, likely to play for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The team has until January 7th to either sign him or trade his rights. The former Heisman Trophy winner and Cleveland Browns quarterback was cut after the 2015 season while under investigation for domestic assault charges by his former girlfriend. And the time now is 11 minutes after the top of the hour. Law enforcement deaths, this is some good news. They drop for the first time in 3 years. While our next guest, former NYPD officer Darren Porcher, Dr. Darren Porcher, says that the president's policies are making all the difference. Always love it when he joins us. And too little too late, the so-called fix Apple is offering for secretly slowing down your old iPhones. Welcome back to Fox and Friends. First, brand new numbers revealing officer fatalities are down 10% this year. And some may say, or they even say, that President Trump is to thank for all that. Law enforcement leaders saying that their commander-in-chief's strong support for police has boosted morale, and it's even saved lives.
America stands strong with our men and women in blue. Believe me, we stand strong together.
And here now to weigh in is former NYPD Lieutenant and U.S. Army veteran Dr. Darren Porcher. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And this is some good news because officer fatalities, they're down to 128 last year in 2017, and that was down from 135. So what do you attribute that to?
I attribute the precipitous drop to Donald Trump himself. One of the things is the GDP is increased by 3%. Whenever we have an increase in the economy, we always have a crime reduction. And this is a tout of Donald Trump's policies moving forward in connection with the economy. In addition to that, he's put in place some conservative justices throughout the country. A lot of these federal justices that he's put in play have focused on eradicating groups like MS-13 and embarked upon higher prison sentences for predicate felons.
So, because, I mean, it's easy to follow the GDP up, more people have jobs, more people, feel better about their circumstances, so less crime, but also in terms of the judges, you say, because they know that if they do commit crimes, that the judges will come down hard on them.
They are. The judges will come down hard, and they're executing on Donald Trump's policies. This is this is a platform that he ran on through the election, and he's showing true to being a true commander-in-chief, and it's reflective of the precipitous drops in crime in the city.
Yeah, and then also targeting the gangs.
Absolutely, because MS-13, when we go back a couple of months ago, we saw Jeff Sessions visited Long Island, and he declared a war against these criminal elements such as MS-13, and this is something he's been able to show and prove on. In addition to that, when we look at the border security, this is all coming to manifest, and we see the drops in crime, and this is reflective of Trump and Sessions' strategies.
Yeah, and President Trump has made it very clear from the very beginning that he is supportive of law enforcement and that he will give them the resources needed to fight crime.
Absolutely. The resources are of optimum importance.
And the respect.
And the respect constantly. He always steps in front of the camera and states how he backs law enforcement, and this is something that's resonating in not just law enforcement, but the rest of the country.
Yeah, because, lead by example, because his attitude, being supportive of law enforcement, being respectful of law enforcement, will hopefully spread to others in the community.
Right, and this is in diametric opposition of the last administration. We had a situation where President Obama seemed like he was more opposed to, and he set up a series of consent decrees to target these police departments, whereas one of the first things that President Trump did was he rolled back a lot of these consent decrees, and he believed that police departments were capable of policing themselves.
Yeah, well, regardless, it is great news, and we hope that those number of officer fatalities just continue to drop, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
As always, a pleasure.
Hey, have a great New Year.
And you too.
Can you believe the year's over? It's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe.
All right. Thanks. Well, the time now is about 18 minutes after the top of the hour. And remember the college professor who said all he wanted for Christmas is white genocide? Well, Drexel University is about to have a job opening.
My New Year's resolution is to learn how to play guitar.
Oh. Really? How come?
Well, you know those special skills I have listed on my resume? Well, I would love it if one of those was true.
Don't you love Joey? I love Joey, right? Well, new year, new you. But will you actually stick to your resolution this year? Dr. Dom is here with the 5 secrets to a better you in 2018. Well, picking a New Year's resolution. Picking the resolution, that can be easy, but sticking with it, not so much. A much tougher task for a lot of folks. So what is the trick to actually keeping the promise that you make to yourself? Here now with his tips is board-certified psychiatrist Dr. Dominic Sportelli. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Heather. It's so wonderful to be here. It's such an optimistic time of year with new beginnings and, of course, New Year's resolutions.
Yes, optimistic. Lots of people try to do this every year. Let's take a look off the top at some of the big ones that people always tend to make. Everybody always says they want to get healthy.
Get healthy. Yeah. That's number one.
Get organized. Live life to the fullest this year. Yeah. Don't exactly know what that means, but learn some new hobbies. Spend less, save more. That's always a big one. You should always try to do that. But it's difficult.
It's really hard.
Any of those.
Listen, 50% of Americans make New Year's resolutions, right? But guess how many actually go through with
Let me
it?
guess. 10%.
Close, 8%.
Okay.
8%. So what's going wrong? That's the question. What's going wrong? So
You
I
have
have
some
some
tips.
tips for you. I have some absolute great tips for you.
Easy to remember. You call it SMART.
SMART. That's the acronym. We're going to say SMART. So for S, be specific with your goals, right? See, people make these far-reaching, very
like
wide,
live life
vague
to the
goals.
fullest.
Right, what does that really mean?
It's not very
exactly?
specific.
So,
Okay.
and how do you even do that, right? So it leaves a lot of questions. So be specific. For example, instead of saying live life to the fullest, say, you know what, this year I'm going to take a vacation 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay.
And that's your goal,
That's
right?
good. That's a good idea.
So yeah, that's exactly right. So, and then the next one for M, because we're going SMART, the next one is measurement. Make sure that whatever your goal is, make sure you can measure it somehow.
So not just lose weight.
Exactly. Don't just lose weight. Let's get on track and say, you know what, if I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to take my weight every 2 weeks. We're going to monitor it. We're going to measure it. If I want to save money, we're going to download a financial app and we're going to track my savings.
So
make sure
that
can
forces you to
measure
be
it.
serious about
Exactly. You got it. So A stands for attainment. Can you actually make this happen? Is it realistic? Here's the thing. People tend to have all or nothing thinking when it comes to New Year's resolutions.
Right.
How many times have you heard, oh, my New Year's resolution only lasted a week or 2 weeks? But why give up? If you don't make it, continue. Just get back on the horse and keep going.
Yeah.
Keep trying. You don't have to give up. Setbacks are normal.
Right.
So make sure you have realistic goals, and it's okay if you have missteps. Totally fine.
So if you say, I'm not going to eat any more pizza in the entire new year, pizza and cake, and if you fall back on that,
It's
you can just try
You're
again.
fine.
Try
You're
next
good.
week.
We're going to keep it going.
And
so
relevant.
R is relevance. Now, relevance is important because I want people to think of the bigger picture. So instead of saying, I'm going to get fit and healthy, think about how it's going to affect your life, your family's life. So if me, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to get fit and healthy this year. You know why? Because I want to live a better life. I want to be around for my kids. I want to live a longer, healthier life. I want to be more active with my kids. So make it more than you. Make it more about your family and your life.
That's a very good idea, yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay.
It'll help you stick with it.
And then finally?
T is tracking. Now, tracking means that you're really going to keep track of your progress. And one way to do this, I really encourage people to get friends and family involved. Let them know what your resolutions are, because they're going to help you keep track. They're going to hold you accountable, and they're going to provide support for you.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how many friends you'll have left when with that though, but that's a good idea for sure. Yeah. So they can hold you accountable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so be smart with your resolutions and try to keep them, and don't give up.
You got it.
All right. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. You
All
too.
right, do you make New Year's resolutions?
I do. I do. And I'll share it with you. Number 3, live life to the fullest. That's me.
Okay. Good. But be specific.
I will.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well, the time now is about 26 minutes after the top of the hour, and it's a common courtesy for past presidents to keep their opinions about new presidents private. But apparently, President Barack Obama didn't get that message.
Some of the politics we see now, we thought we put that to bed. That's folks looking 50 years back.
He's got a lot of opinions. So are those attacks hurting America's foreign policy? Well, our next guest says, don't worry, no one's listening anyway. And it made average Americans instant millionaires. But is Bitcoin really the money of the future? Kurt the Cyber Guy breaks down the technology that will change your life in 2018. You definitely don't want to miss that. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. 4:30 in the morning here on the East Coast. Fox News alert for you. The nation's top law enforcement agency under fire for refusing to turn over documents related to the fake Trump dossier investigation. A Fox News exclusively obtaining a letter from House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Nunes tells Rosenstein, quote, at this point, it seems the DOJ and FBI need to be investigating themselves. And he's not the only Republican lawmaker that feels that way.
Congress has a responsibility of oversight. They have been ignored. They have been delayed. They have refused to send people in to have hearings or to be questioned. We cannot allow that to happen in a country that believes in the rule of law. And that's why I think people are frustrated, and rightfully so.
Well, the Russia investigation plagued with bias from the beginning. Representative Matt Gaetz has repeatedly called for Attorney General Sessions to step up and fire Robert Mueller.
The problem is in the swamp of Washington, D.C., the biggest alligator is a politicized FBI and Department of Justice. And that's why we're fighting hard to make sure that we've got a fair and equal opportunity for all sides to be heard.
Well, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi agrees. She says that the American people deserve a fair investigation.
As a career prosecutor, my entire career, and now Attorney General of the third largest state in the country, there are about 40,000 great men and women of the FBI throughout this country. And there are a few bad ones in the Justice Department who are making the rest look bad. And that's not fair to those great men and women who are out there risking their lives every day. We have Wiseman, we have Strzok, we have Page. And by the way, Strzok shouldn't be in HR. He should be fired. We have now James Baker allegations. We have all of these things. So the Intelligence Committee, they have to take it upon themselves, I think Greg will agree, to do the investigation the right way and call for these people to be taken off who can't handle it the right way. And the American people deserve that. You know, this investigation should be beyond a reproach. This is the President of the United States.
Well, Chairman Nunes says that the DOJ and the FBI now have until the 3rd of January, that's next week, to produce all relevant records and documents related to that original subpoena, which they received back in August. So we'll see if they meet that deadline. Well, since President Trump has taken office, former President Obama has not held back on slamming his successor's policies.
One of the dangers of the internet is that people can have entirely different realities. They can be just cocooned in information that reinforces their current biases.
Some of the politics we see now, we thought we put that to bed. That's folks looking 50 years back.
It's certainly frustrating to have to mobilize every couple of months to keep our leaders from inflicting real human suffering on our constituents.
Well, has a former president ever criticized a current one before? Have they ever done it as much as this? And what kind of impact does this have on our country's standing around the world? Here now to weigh in is Senior Fellow with the Heritage Foundation, James Carafano. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
So have you ever heard a former president do something like this to this extent? Because it does seem like we have President Obama just out there constantly at this point, traveling behind where President Trump goes and, you know, coming out with his opinions on what President Trump has to say.
Well, it's not completely historically unprecedented. We have presidents that have criticized the presidents that came after them before. The difference now is we have this huge megaphone 24-hour news cycle on the internet, so it gets a lot more attention than it used to. I don't think it really moves the bubble. Obama has a lot more to worry about. What he's going to be judged on is his own legacy, and his legacy right now is not looking good. I mean, his economy pales compared to this economy. His foreign policy pales to this foreign policy. Even domestic violence and the domestic situation is calmer than it was during his presidency. So he's got his own issues.
Well, actually, maybe that's a good point. Do you think that that actually is the reason that he's out there so much, because he's worried about his legacy?
Yeah, I guess you'd have to ask Mr. Obama why he's out there doing what he does. In terms of foreign policy, look, this does not move the bubble. Everybody in the world knows who the President of the United States is. I've been all over the world talking to ministers and heads of government and parliamentarians. They know who has power in the United States, and it's not Obama, and that's not the person they pay attention to.
But does it give them talking points? Does it give them fodder to use against the current administration when you have someone like President Obama out there talking about, to business leaders in Paris in terms of climate change, where he says there is a, quote, temporary absence of American leadership? Can they then take that and use that against this administration?
Well, ironically, not really among our friends and allies, who actually, by and large, like Trump's foreign policies better than Obama's. In Europe, he's been tougher on the Russians. In the Middle East, he's been much tougher on ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Iran. He's stiff-armed China. He's got a much more consistent North Korean policy. And most of our allies really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. But in terms of helping, I mean, this definitely doesn't help in terms of bringing America together and furthering America in the world.
Yeah, well, look, we've never been more divided, and the whole world has never been more puzzled by this. And I'm not sure one more voice, however illegitimate it is, makes much of a difference. But the point is that the policies are working, and Trump is anything but a lame duck president. I mean, the next, traditionally over the next 2 years, presidents still have a lot of power and authority, even if it doesn't look like they're going to get reelected. And in foreign policy and security policy, they can operate pretty independently, even of oversight, of the influence of Congress. So people recognize this is a president that they're going to have to deal with for the next 2 years, and nobody is diminishing Trump just because Obama complains about him.
Right, yeah, he doesn't necessarily need his assistance, that's for sure, he's proven that, but it would certainly help if you had some sort of support, especially from a previous administration. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us this morning. Hey, have a great new year.
You too.
All right. We're turning now to some extreme weather. Bone-chilling temperatures gripping millions of Americans across the Northeast. It is cold. New Hampshire plunging to 34 degrees below zero. That turns boiling water into snow. And then the brutal cold forcing at least 83 flight cancellations in Chicago. But the deep freeze has actually been some good news for oil and coal. Bloomberg reporting that plants were using the most fuel oil in 3 years on Thursday to power heaters all across New England. So bundle up if you've got to be out there. And then a man being hailed a hero after leaping into freezing water, saving a 70-year-old woman. Watch this. Look at that, the man struggling to haul her out of this icy river in China, even smashing through with his bare hands, and then another man later helping to pull that woman to safety. A very lucky woman there. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour. Too little, too late. The so-called fix that Apple is offering for secretly slowing down your old iPhones. And more states now considering legalizing marijuana. How one fast food chain is cashing in a menu or the munchies. And it was the coast-to-coast craze that had everyone looking up the eclipse. Welcome back, Fox Business Alert for you now. Apple offering